Hey y'all, what's going on? I'm here to talk about Empire Season 3, Episode 2. We start off with Cookie. She's getting a series of rings at her door or whatever, at her doorbell or whatever. And they're gifts from Lucius. You know, he's still trying to win her back over and everything. The last time that she gets a ring at her doorbell, Portia, you know, her assistant, she tells her, she's like, Cookie, you gotta come and see this or whatever, blase, blase. And it's a statue or whatever, and you know she tells them to take everything back because she don't want none of this shit or whatever, and that she's done with Lucius and his foolishness. So moving on from that, we get Anika. She's, you know, looking for a nanny to help her with baby Bella. And Lucius, he's like, what the hell is going on here and everything, and he tells everybody to get the hell out or whatever. And he reminds Anika about this investigation that's going on right now, and he don't need no new motherfuckers coming in trying to, you know, figure out some, you know, sniff some shit out, and pretty much he don't trust nobody right now. You know what I'm saying? Um, the baby starts crying upstairs, and she's telling Lucius like she needs help and everything. I'm like, well, you should have thought about that before you sat up here and got pregnant by your ex fiance's son. I'm just saying. Um, but you know, Mama Lucia, she's like, you know, I took care of the white by myself. Since he was, you know, a little boy and all this other stuff, and she was like, look, let me go get Bella or whatever. And Anika was like, you better not put your hands on my baby, you crazy old bitch. She ain't say that for real, y'all, but that's what she wanted to say. I'm just saying. So, moving on from that, we get Angela Yee from the Breakfast Club. She's interviewing Jamal, and this is where we also get introduced to Taye Diggs' character on the show, named Councilman Angelo something. I forgot his last name. I apologize for that. But you know, Angela, she, you know, says that, you know, Jamal seems like, you know, he froze up at the last event or whatever that he was at and everything, and Jamal was like, no, it's not that or whatever. And she says, you know, did it have something to do with you getting shot or whatever? And you know, that's when Tate, that's, I'm sorry, I'm about to call him by his real name, Councilman Angelo. That's when he says, you know, you had, you know, you pretty much telling him you got PTSD or whatever, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, and you're a victim and all this other stuff. And you know, Jamal's getting irritated. He was like, you know, with all due respect, Councilman or whatever, I would appreciate if you not try to diagnose me and everything, considering that you're not a doctor. And he was like that. I'm not a victim. If anybody is a victim, it's Frida and everything. And, you know, he's like, how is that or whatever? When, you know, he was like, you know, who put the gun in her hand and everything, this, that, and the third. And you know, Jamal was like, you know, well, why don't we all try growing up where she grew up at? And you know, Councilman Angelo, he pretty much feels like that it's a cop out or whatever, like that kind of thinking does a disservice to black people and all this other stuff. And Jamal says, like, this is facts here. Like, you know, kids who, you know, came from the type of background that Frida came from, you know, have to deal with poverty, police brutality, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And you know, Councilman Angelo is pretty much like, you know, education could fix that and all this other stuff, and that's why he has his foundation that he has now for the kids or whatever, and or organization or whatever you want to call it. And he asks Jamal to, you know, come through and talk to the kids and everything and all this other stuff. And Cookie is telling him like, don't you do it, don't you do it, and all this other stuff. But Jamal, he agrees to it and everything. Him and Cookie are leaving, and Cookie was like, you know, what the hell is wrong with you, Jamal? Why would you agree to that or whatever and all this other stuff? You know, like she was like, his bougie ass don't even know the first thing about struggling and all this other stuff. Like, pretty much saying that he can't relate to anything that, you know, these kids is going through and all this other stuff. She called him a bougie bitch though. But anyways, he follows behind them or whatever, and asks, is Cookie gonna be there as well? She was like, no, I got stuff I gotta do, I'm busy. And Jamal seemed to fail to tell you that he's gonna be in the studio all week making music and all this other stuff. And then that's when Jamal says, well, you know, I could find time for them, I'm not gonna let them down or whatever. And you know, Cookie was like, Cookie said something to the councilman. I forgot what she said, but it was rude or whatever. And Jamal was like, "Dang, mom, why you gotta be so rude or whatever?" This, that, and the third. And she was like, he seems like a polite guy and all this other stuff. And she was like, "I don't trust polite people, stupid." So, anyways, moving on from that. Let me see. Okay, yeah, we get Lucius. He's talking to Shine, Vanessa, and Hakeem or whatever. And Lucius is talking about pretty much how nobody's talking about Jamal. They're all talking about her and her talent and everything. And he asks Nessa what's her next move and all this other stuff. And that's when Hakeem chimes in and pretty much tells Lucius that she's going to be working with him and Shine and everything. And Lucius is like, all the potential in the world that you got, all this fire that you got behind you, and you mean to tell me these the only two bozos that you could find that you want to work with or whatever? And Lucius is like, now, as far as you and Hakeem working together, that's a whole nother different discussion, because he has priorities that he has to take care of that he seems to forget about. And Hakeem is like, what does that have to do with anything or whatever? And he's like, you seem to forget that you have a child that you have to take care of while your baby mama is at my house, taking care of this child by herself and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? And he just gonna keep on holding this shit over Hakeem's head, man. Anyways, moving on from that, we get Cookie real quick. She brings some more of Lucius, stuff back that he was trying to give her, and tells him, again, that it's just business, and stop with all this shit. And Lucius pretty much tells her, well, since it's about business, you might want to come by later so we could talk about Jamal releasing his Black and White album. And she's like, Lucius, he don't want to release that album. And he's like, it's not about what Jamal wants to do. He needs to do something after that flop at, the last event that we had or whatever, blase. So, they was talking about some other stuff or whatever, and Lucius was like, I see that you kept the gun that I got you though, and she was like, bye Lucius or whatever, you know how she do. Moving on from that, we get Jamal with Councilman Angelo. He's taking him and the kids from the summit thing on the tour. On a tour of Empire. And Lucius, he calls Lucius over and everything, and this one kid, he asks to rap for Lucius and all this other stuff. So Lucius like, go ahead, man, and everything. And the kid is rapping for him. Lucius, he's impressed or whatever. And he says, with Jamal not making music anymore, I think we should sign you and all this other stuff and blase while Jamal is trying to save the world. And, Jamal is like, I've been working on some new stuff, and I could save the world at the same time and all this other stuff. Lucius, he suggests that, they have the summit event at Empire, and the kids, they're excited and everything. Angelo, he's kind of like shaky about it at first or whatever. And then that's when Lucius, he, offers to underwrite the whole thing and stream it live. And that's when, the councilman, he gives in or whatever. And he's okay with it. Lucius tells Jamal to tell Cookie, to handle the music and all this other stuff. So next we get Hakeem. He's in the studio with Vanessa or whatever. And he's rapping. He's getting a little frustrated. Nessa tells him, like, that was hot, Hakeem. That was it. And he was like, oh, first you hate me, now you love me. Whatever. And next thing he starts to make a song out of that line and everything. And then that's when she, jumps on the track with him. I kind of see a little something there between them. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But anyways, moving on from that, we get Cookie. She's talking to Becky about the different artists that's there, including J-Pop coming back from tour, I believe, and how his contract is almost up or something like that. And I think J-Pop is the dude that Becky was messing with last season, right? If I'm not mistaken. But anyways, Becky, she starts to talk to her about a A&R position, and that's when Lucius kind of comes in and interrupts that conversation. And Becky, she leaves out or whatever. Lucius walks in and says that he has a gift for, Jamal and everything. And he wants Cookie to say that it's from her or whatever. He might appreciate it more. So he plays the track for Cookie and everything, and it's the background to it's the beat to you say he just a friend, the song by Biz Markie. And Cookie realizes what Lucius is trying to do. Like, Lucius, this is the song that me and you met to or whatever, this, that, and the third. And she has a flashback moment of when he was singing to that song, and how she was enticed by him and everything and all this other stuff. And they reminiscing about the past and everything. And she keeps telling him, like, I'm done with you, Lucius. I'm done with this game that you're playing and all this other stuff. And she says that she will give Jamal the track, though, or whatever. So he starts to play the song again, and she was like, you're not going to wear me down. You know what I'm saying? So moving on from that, we see Andre. He's having another breakdown. He keeps hearing Rhonda's voice. He's trying to figure out how to take his medicine and everything. And, you hear her saying, nope, I can't help you with that no more, or whatever. And, he's, yelling and everything, yelling out for Rhonda. Jamal walks on him yet again, and he's like, who you talking to? Or whatever. And, he's like, nobody or whatever. And he was like, you talking to Rhonda or whatever, like, is she here and everything? And he's like, no, or whatever. And he tells Jamal he's not going to make it. And, Rhonda used to handle all his medicine and how it changes, it goes up and down or whatever. Jamal says that he'll help him and everything. And, Jamal, he kept the chart for, he keeps a chart for himself for the medicine that he has to take for, him getting shot or whatever. And so he says that he's going to keep a chart for Andre or whatever. So, Andre, he's grateful. Andre is grateful for it or whatever, and they hug and everything. And I thought that was a touching scene for me. I just feel so bad for Andre, y'all. I really do. Moving on from that, we see Cookie. She I think they're at Empire, whatever. Cookie, she sees Lucius talking to Councilman Angelo, and she's not pleased about it. She calls Lucius over and everything. And she's like, how last week you was opening up your door for an FBI official or whatever. Now this week you opening up your door for a government official and all this other stuff. And Cookie, she's calling him High Sididity and everything. And, oh no, I'm sorry. I think she was calling him that before. I mean, afterwards or whatever. But anyways, Lucius tells Cookie that he done ran like a whole he had Thirsty run a whole background check on him or whatever, and that he's had one DUI, but other than that he's pretty a clean cut dude or whatever. Lucius was like, besides, I thought this is what you wanted to do and everything. And she was like, oh, that's what Jamal told you and all this other stuff. And Lucius, he pretty much feels like that Jamal is trying to well, no. Cookie tells him, like, let's just, end the cycle like Jamal said or whatever. Lucius, that's when he says, Jamal is trying to cover the fact that he can't sing no more due to him getting shot or whatever, this, that, and the third. And that's when, the councilman comes over and Cookie starts to read him for filth or whatever. She's talking about how, he's exploiting Jamal for his cause and everything, and how can you, relate to what these kids have been through, like you just, you High Sididity and all this stuff, and, how you keep on calling these kids victims and everything, and they don't have, folk to give them, a second chance like you did with, Mr. DUI and all this other stuff. Like, she was just going in on him, y'all. Like, I was cracking up at her, like, she was going in on his ass. But anyways, she was like, they giving your ass a slap on the wrist for drunk driving when you could have killed somebody and all this other stuff. And Jamal was like, damn. The last person I seen her go off on like that was you, talking about Lucius or whatever. So anyways, moving on from that, Lucius, yet again, he's still trying to win Cookie over by having Biz Markie, in her how in her apartment or whatever, performing, but you say he just a friend or whatever. Um, Lucius, he admits, after, well, no. Cookie, she's vibing to, Biz Markie singing the song along with him or whatever. So that's when her and Lucius have a private conversation. And she was like, I know we have a lot of history together, but you got to stop hanging over my head the first time we met. And Lucius, he makes a confession to her saying that might have been the first time you saw me, but that was not the first time I saw you. And they flash back to the first time that Lucius actually saw Cookie and everything and all this other stuff. And he tells her, like, no, Cookie was like, you knew I had a boyfriend, you still, was trying to get at me and all this other stuff. And Lucius was like, look, I felt like I didn't have a shot with you or whatever. You was this Catholic, schoolgirl and, doing your thing and everything, and I didn't think you would, be interested in me and, all this stuff. And the guy that you was dating, he was like a nerd. And she says that he was not a nerd, and he was like, yeah, but he won't no street dude neither. You know what I'm saying? And he tells her, like, Cookie, you saw something in me or whatever. You saw, pretty much, she saw the better in him and knew that he was just more than just these streets, that he had potential for music and all this other stuff. So moving on from that, Andre, we get Andre and Cookie, they're in the scenes together. Andre, he asks her, you've been through the most shit out of all of us. Like, how do you continue to still fight and everything and all this other stuff? And, Cookie tells him, like, that you accomplished a lot and all this other stuff. And especially after me and your grandmother, it makes sense, but I'm proud of you and all this other stuff. And, she, holds his face and, tells him, like, I'm proud of you, Andre. Like, nobody had, like, a summons, when you was coming up while I was, locked up in jail and everything. And, she says that, he fought, and he fought his way hard to, get out of the hood and all this other stuff. And that, she tells him to keep fighting and that she has him. She reassures him that she has him. So moving on from that, Hakeem's in the studio with Shine and Nessa or whatever. And they're pretty much showing Shine, what they came up with and everything. And pretty much Shine, he peeps his homeboy looking at Nessa's butt or whatever, or lack of. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I know I'm small or whatever, but I got a little bit more than what she got. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? And, so he peeps it or whatever and knocks him the hell out. And, that got Hakeem kind of thinking twice about, what the fuck am I doing here? And I don't even know if I should even be attempting to mess with this girl at this point. So we get the event or whatever, the Summits event, and they're performing this inspiration. The kids, they're performing this inspirational song or whatever. And, talking about police brutality and all this other stuff. And the boy who rapped for Lucius earlier in the show, he's like the lead for the song and everything, rapping or whatever. And that's when Angelo, he, starts to give his speech or whatever. And he starts to talk about how talks about Jamal being a victim, but he catches himself or whatever. And he was like, excuse me, Jamal, I'm gonna replace the word victim with the survivor and everything. And Portia tells Cookie, like, look, I know he get on your nerves, but that nigga fine, okay? And so Cookie, she has a little flashback of her and her ex or whatever, and pretty much she's telling him about her dreams of really being into music, giving it a shot or whatever. Angelo thanks Cookie for checking him about his choice of words and all this other stuff. He calls Lucius up and everything to give a speech and all this other stuff. And how, so Lucius, he comes up and he explains how Jamal saved his life or whatever, and blase, and pretty much he tells Jamal that, everything that he's been through, that he should, perform. It's only right for him to perform a song. I'm like, really, Lucius? Why would you do that to that boy? And you see Cookie's face immediately change too. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So he's holding the mic out to Jamal, and he's getting the audience to chant Jamal, Jamal, and all this other stuff. And Jamal, he starts to have anxiety. He runs out and everything, and he falls to the ground. Cookie falls behind him, trying to, comfort him and all this other stuff. And Lucius, he says, like, you need to face this and all this other stuff. And, Jamal's like, all right, I'm scared, all right? That's what you wanted to hear and all this other stuff. And, that's when, Jamal admits that he has a problem and all this other stuff. And, pretty much Lucius was looking at Cookie like, he pretty much was looking at Cookie like, I told you so, or whatever. I was just like, Lucius he gets on my fucking nerves, y'all. He really does. Anyways, moving on from that, we get the councilman, talking to, Lucius and Cookie or whatever, and, yeah, he's flirting with Cookie and everything, and Cookie tells him to call me, call me Cookie and all this other stuff, and because he was pretty much saying that it's cool how you and Lucius are ride or die for each other and all this other stuff, despite the fact that you're not together and everything, and Cookie walks off and all this other stuff, and that's when Lucius, you could see Lucius, he getting jealous, he feeling some type of way or whatever. Councilman Angelo trying to shake his hand. And Lucius was like, you know what? I think you was right the first time. It's Mr. Lion to you. I said, this motherfucker here getting jealous and shit. So anyways, moving on from that, we get Becky with, I think, the dude J-Pop or whatever, and he says that he's leaving Empire, and he negotiated for her to come with him, and he says, I heard they was trying to replace you with somebody else for like the AR position or whatever, and like and that she needs to get the fuck away from Empire because they hot as a bitch or whatever with all this FBI shit going on. Moving on from that, we get a scene with the brothers hanging out, nothing major, just them talking and Andre giving them encouragement and all this other stuff. And, Andre comes to the conclusion that he needs to move the rest of his stuff out of the house that him and Rhonda shared. Moving on from that, we get Tyreek, he's still watching Lucius and all this other stuff. And he even has a flashback of, him and Lucius or whatever growing up. Anika, she notices something is off or whatever because she takes the baby out of Lucius' hand and puts the baby in the crib. And as she's grabbing the baby monitor, she can hear like, a sketchy noise or whatever in the thermometer, the baby monitor or whatever. And she keeps on, moving it, and she moves it to the teddy bear, and that's where she hears the static at and everything. Lucius wakes up to hear what's going on. And so, he hugs her, hugs her and grabs her and all this other stuff, and was like, I figured, he's like, why do we have this thirsty bear or whatever when we get all this other stuff for our baby and everything, looking directly into the camera. So he snatches the camera out or whatever. That was the end of that. And the last scene that we have is Andre, coming from his old house or whatever, getting the last of his things. Then this is where police, start harassing him or whatever, asking him, does he know about any break-ins or whatever. And it's this white lady on her phone on the porch or whatever, and he looks over at her like, this bitch or whatever. And he was like, no, I don't know anything about that. Why would I know anything about that? He's like, I used to live here or whatever and all this other stuff. And they asked, do he have any ID or whatever? And he says, my ID is in, is in my car or something like that, he was saying. And then that's when, they grab him and slam him to the ground. And, Andre's trying to, move from them or whatever. And they try to tell him to stop resisting. And that was pretty much the end of it. Pretty much good timing for everything that's been going on, lately in the news or whatever. With that last scene. I apologize for this review being so long or whatever. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys come back. Make sure you guys follow me on social media. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.